right, so another pretty easy day. Let's do, we kind of already went over the organelles, but let's just do a little review. So pro means what?
No.
No, U means? So tell me two important things about a prokaryote.
Doesn't have nucleus.
And no membrane-bound organelles, perfect. Tell me two things about a eukaryote.
Has nucleus. Has.
So has a nucleus and has membrane-bound organelles, perfect. What are some things that both cells have? DNA, cell membrane, ribosomes, and cytoplasm. That's right, yeah, good job. And then yesterday, and the day before, we talked about some organelles. So the control center or brain is the nucleus. What allows things to enter next to the cell?
Cell membrane.
What is used for storage? Powerhouse. Photosynthesis occurs here. Chloroplast, yes. Protein synthesis. Ribosomes. This supports and protects a plant cell. Cell wall and the gel-like substance where chemical reactions take place. Cytoplasm. What are the differences between a plant and animal cell?
Plant cell has a cell wall.
Yes. Squared. And it also has a chloroplast. And one other difference.
Plant cell is greener.
What is green? What makes it green?
Green.
What's that called, you remember? It is a green pigment. Chlorophyll, right. And then what's the difference between plant cells have a larger vacuole? That is correct. All right. So today we are going to talk about unicellular adaptations. So we've talked about the difference between unicellular and multicellular. Unicellular is one cell and multicellular, more than one, multiple, okay? So I just want you to think for 30, 60 seconds. When was the time you had to adapt to your approach when you had to solve a problem? What does it mean to adapt? Okay, to change because of your environment, okay? So someone want to share a time when you had to adapt? Hi. All 5 times you moved, so why would you have to adapt? Okay, new people? New restaurants, okay. Different kind of people. New surroundings, right? Okay. Anybody else want to share? This year. All right. It's a big thing. So tell me what you had to adapt to. Wearing masks, social distancing. I like it. And what? I wouldn't call them dumb rules, but definitely different rules. All right. And that would kind of take us into the next question, which when was the time you had to adapt to a new environment or situation? And that school year is exactly that. So today we're going to talk about cell adaptations, and they are what help cells survive, okay? So today we're going to focus in on unicellular organisms. So what is an adaptation? An adaptation is a physical or behavioral characteristic that has developed to allow an organism to better survive in its environment. We'll talk more about adaptations when we get to evolution, but this is the result of evolution. And we talked about evolution when we talked about the what? Characteristics of life. And in 3 words, who can tell me what evolution is? Change over time. Perfect. So when we talk about adaptations, there are 2 types of adaptations, physical and behavioral. So physical For example, a crab's hard shell for protection from the waves. And then behavioral would be a loud, low frequency call by fin whales in order to communicate with other whales over a great distance. Okay? So physical, we can actually see, right? Okay. So some physical adaptations that we are going to talk about today are contractile vacuole, different than the vacuole we've already talked about, cilia, flagella, which were in your vocab this week, an eye spot, as well as a pseudopod. Okay? Two adaptive behaviors we're going to talk about are chemotaxis and phototaxis. So first is a contractile vacuole. So this is different than the vacuole we talked about in plant animal cells. Okay? So most protists, like the paramecium, live in water. So contractile vacuoles fill with excess water and then pump the water out of the cell. Okay? So they're used to pump out excess water. Next is cilia. Cilia and flagella are both used for movement, but they look a little bit different. So cilia are short hair-like projections on the outside of a cell that move using coordinated strokes. Okay? So like paddling a boat. What's that called when they, the colleges that have those teams, they do those, what's that boating?
Crew.
Yeah. What? No.
Crew.
But what kind of boat is that they do that in, a big long one?
I don't
You know what I'm talking about,
I know
right?
it's not bad. Yeah, on the Schuylkill River there. there's a
All those Philadelphia
Boathouse
schools.
Road. It's the crew team. I can't think of the name of the boat.
That's what I'm trying to think of. So in Philadelphia, all of the schools that way, there's a place called Boathouse Row, and they all have like rowing teams, but I can't think of the actual name of the boat. But you have to row how? Well, yes, but like, how do you have to row to make it work as a team? Yes, so you have to be synchronous, right? And work together to make it work, okay? So paramecium have cilia, and they use this to move and sweep food into their food passage. So that's their way of bringing food in. Next is flagella, so also used for movement. Flagella is a long whip-like tail, and some bacteria and protists have one or more flagella to make them move. This is an example of a euglena, which is a protist, and this uses flagella to be able to move throughout the water. Something else that we might be a little more familiar with is a sperm cell. A sperm cell has a flagella, and that's how a sperm cell would travel. Okay? Next is an eye spot, and this is exactly what it says it is. So euglena also have a structure called an eye spot, and this is used to detect light. So they can detect if light is absent or present. So if it detects light, the euglena will move toward the light for photosynthesis. And if it doesn't detect the light, the euglena will feed on organisms in the water. Okay? So the eye spot is used for detecting light. Next is the pseudopod. So some protists have pseudopods. Pseudo, okay, means false feet. And they use these to move and capture their food. So an example of this is an amoeba. They use a pseudopod to take in their food. So now the adaptive behaviors, there are two. We'll talk about chemotaxis and phototaxis. So taxis, plural, are involuntary responses to different stimuli in an organism's environment. So we've already talked about stimulus and what? Response, and we talked about that when we did characteristics of life, right? Okay, so chemotaxis is movement toward or away from chemicals, and phototaxis is toward or away from light. Okay, so chemotaxis, chemo think chemical, and phototaxis, photo think yes, but light. Okay, so photosynthesis is an example. So positive, if it's positive, that's toward, and if it's negative, it is away. So positive phototaxis would be toward light, negative would be away from light, and positive chemotaxis would be toward chemicals, negative away from. We're going to see this again when we get into ecology, but a great example is for phototaxis. If you turn on the light outside at nighttime, what happens? Bugs, right? Moths, because they flock towards the light. So is that positive or negative? Positive. Now, good old Kingston High School gym. So if you were to turn on the light, what kind of bug goes away? A cockroach, right? Okay. So if you were to turn on a light, the roaches, they scatter. So that would be what kind? Negative, because it's going away. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about any of that? Nope. All right. So flagella is what? A long-lived like tail that's used to what? Move. Cilia. Yep, short hair-like structures that's also used for movement. An eye spot detects light. Okay. Contractile vacuole does what? Yep, pumps out excess water. And then last is a pseudopod, which does what? Okay. And pseudo means false, fake foot, false foot. All right, so today you are going to be working on a little letter, and then you are also going to be doing a unicellular lab. Okay, it's virtual, so it has links for you to go to and complete it. If anybody has questions,